So guys, it's 2021, and that means it's been a couple of years since the big AAA publishers started pushing World War II shooters on us again, because I think what they were trying to do is recapture the magic of the early 2000s, which really was the golden era of historical shooter games, where many of these big FPS game franchises started. But look, I know a lot of you guys watching this probably weren't even alive then, and you might be wondering, why would they even bother to resurrect this almost dead genre? Why were these games so special in the first place? Well, that's what we're going to take a look at today, and most importantly, we're going to finally answer the highly relevant question of Medal of Honor Allied Assault versus Call of Duty 1 in 2021. Guys, this is BillyEatWorld again, and let's find out. Alright guys, how you going? Welcome to the video, and like I said, today we're taking a look back at probably two of the most important first-person shooter games that I think have ever come out. But just before we do get into that though, let's talk about why they're so important. I mean, apart from the fact that these were the first games in what went on to become two of the biggest shooter franchises ever. Firstly, I want to talk about Medal of Honor, because you might not realize it actually predates Call of Duty by a couple of years. The first game in the franchise came out way back in 1999 for the PlayStation 1. And really the most important thing that you need to know about this one is that it was the brainchild of Steven Spielberg, who kind of had the idea to make a game like GoldenEye 64, but with a World War II theme. Now in this video though, you might be wondering why we're taking a look at Medal of Honor Allied Assault instead, and that's because it was the first game in the franchise to come out on the PC in 2002. And it was a completely different animal from the two previous PlayStation games, most importantly because it didn't feel like a World War II GoldenEye clone anymore. In fact, it was probably the game that laid the basic groundwork for most of the modern military shooters that you guys play today, a format that more than a few franchises latched onto at the time. And probably the most obvious one was Call of Duty. The first game in that franchise came out about a year and a half after Allied Assault, and to say that it was a Medal of Honor clone is kind of putting it lightly. Look, we all know Call of Duty has a track record of, let's say, borrowing ideas from other franchises, but Call of Duty 1 is probably the biggest rip-off they ever pulled. Firstly, both games run on the id Tech 3 engine, so that's going to make them feel pretty similar in a lot of ways, but not just that, most of the core mechanics are basically identical. It's actually easier to talk about the list of things Call of Duty actually changed, because that list is a lot smaller than what these games have in common. And this wasn't the only game that followed that trend either. Pretty much back and forth for quite a few years, Medal of Honor and Call of Duty games were basically the same sort of thing. What I will say though is that while Call of Duty has kind of become a meme these days for its lack of originality, back then I think most people accepted it because they always improved on the format. As you can see here, unlike Medal of Honor, Call of Duty 1 introduced the aim down sights mechanic and the ability to go prone, which obviously became staples in almost every other modern shooter. Not just that, but the character models and the environments are a lot better in Call of Duty than in Medal of Honor. The NPCs actually have personality and the maps are a lot more immersive. And unlike Medal of Honor, which only focuses on the US factions in World War II, in Call of Duty you actually got to play as the British and the Russians as well. That was really awesome, something I really enjoyed when I was growing up. Now, another important thing I want to mention about these games is that there's a good chance if you bought either of them back in the day, you probably were buying it for just the single-player campaign. Because in 2002, you've got to remember not everyone had a broadband internet connection. Most people still had 56K dial-up, which basically requires you to tie up your home phone line while you're online. Back then, LAN multiplayer was a lot more common than it is now as well. I can remember my first experiences with multiplayer shooters were actually at internet cafes running on a LAN. And even more common was just old school split screen co-op on games like GoldenEye or Halo Combat Evolved. Either way, it's pretty far from what we're used to these days. Both Call of Duty and Medal of Honor, though, were pretty well regarded for their campaigns, not because they had a great story or anything like that, but because they put you into the boots of a real-life soldier. I mean, you were still a bit of a super soldier, but it wasn't really like Doom or Half-Life. You couldn't run around with 10 weapons at once. They actually made an effort to make the game feel immersive. I was always interested in World War II history, but I think playing these games back then absolutely fired up my passion for it. They put you into some of the most iconic battles of the war. And speaking of iconic, well, you'll notice there's some subtle and some not so subtle nods to famous World War II movies. Actually, that's a really good way to put it. They kind of make you feel like you're in a World War II movie. Now, just to expand on this a bit, obviously a big reason I think why these games are so cinematic was the influence of Steven Spielberg. Saving Private Ryan basically became a template on what a World War II movie should be. The action, the music, the bond between the men, and all of this just transitioned over to the games. If you put the music from either of these games into Saving Private Ryan or Band of Brothers, I reckon a lot of people probably wouldn't even notice. It's that similar, which was really smart, in my opinion, for the time. Obviously, just recreating World War II movies in games has been a bit overdone now, but back then it was fresh and it was new and it was awesome. With that being said though, although they do try and recreate those epic moments in World War II history, I've got to admit both franchises are pretty unrealistic. I mean, it's not as bad as Wolfenstein is, there's no robot Hitler and there's no chain gun, but I think it's at least 75% of the way there. Medal of Honor is actually probably worse than Call of Duty. In that one, you play as an OSS agent, so you're essentially just the World War II equivalent of James Bond, single-handedly defeating the entire German army. And so look, in 2021, it kind of makes me cringe, but back then, you know, when you're a kid, you don't care about those things. You just pick up your Panzerfaust and you one-shot your 10th Tiger from across the map without even thinking about it. Now, moving on, I can't really finish this video without talking about the multiplayer, and I kind of want to shift gears a bit and talk about what it's like to actually play multiplayer in these games now, because actually I was really surprised. Both are actually still playable in multiplayer, and pretty easily as well. It's not like some old games where you have to mess around just to get them to work. Medal of Honor still actually has quite a few people playing it as well, and we'll talk about why that is in just a sec, but what you can see here is actual real multiplayer gameplay against actual humans. But just bear in mind, some of these guys clearly have been playing this game for 20 years and there's no regenerating health, so don't feel bad if you're having a hard time getting a positive KD. What I will say though is that of both of these games, Call of Duty definitely feels a lot more like a modern multiplayer shooter than Allied Assault does. The movement feels a lot more fluid and the aim down sights mechanic is probably just going to feel a lot more natural to most players unless you're a CSGO player or something like that. With that being said though, there are quite a few modern mechanics that you're going to notice are completely different in this one, like the lack of hit markers and faction-locked weapons. But all of that you'll get used to. The real issue is finding people to play against. Unlike Medal of Honor, people aren't playing this anymore. Occasionally, a real person would jump in and 1v1 me, but for the most part, in this video, I had to play against bots. So, bearing all of that in mind, that brings me to the end of the video where we probably should talk about whether or not either of these games are still worth playing. And to start with, I think Medal of Honor absolutely is worth checking out for one reason. The community-developed Revival Edition is available for free. Now, I'll put a link to this in the description, but basically what it is a repack of the original game and all of its expansion packs with some useful utilities built in as well. And most importantly, it's what allows the game to still be playable in multiplayer. As far as I know, if you've got an old copy on CD or something like that, that won't be able to access the GameSpy servers, which don't exist anymore. Now, Call of Duty, on the other hand, well, it's actually still available on Steam, so it's easy to get, but it suffers from the same problem a lot of Call of Duty games have, which is that it's overpriced. At the time of making this video, the undiscounted price of COD 1 is still $30 Australian, which just isn't worth it considering it's an 18-year-old game and you're really only going to be buying it for the campaign. And I think that right there is the answer to the key question of this video. Call of Duty might actually be the better game from a technical standpoint, but Medal of Honor is the one that you'll actually want to play in 2021. But don't get me wrong, they're both awesome. Both have a lot of nostalgic memories, and as much as I hate what COD has become, and as much as I hate that it's still so expensive to buy an old game like this, I'm really glad that both of these games exist. But anyway, guys, that just about wraps up this quick review. So as always, please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And just remember that I can't possibly cover every single detail in one video. I am going to miss things, so if you think I have, make sure you put it in the comments so that everyone else can take a look. As always, though, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and please feel free to check out the links in the description if you want to see any more of these videos. And also don't forget you can find my Twitter and Discord links down there as well if you want to keep in touch. And as always, see you later, and have a good one.